In this video, we will be discussing some common logical fallacies that can be made when making claims. So the first is an ad hominem argument. This attacks the person making the argument, completely ignoring the argument itself. So an example would be Jane says that whales aren't fish, but she's only in the second grade, so she can't be right. So it's completely dismissing what she says because she's in second grade. So that's an ad hominem argument. Next, we have an appeal to ignorance. So this assumes that something is true because it hasn't been proven false. So an example would be nobody has proven that that photo isn't Bigfoot, so it must be Bigfoot. An appeal to authority is the next example. This attempts to use the authority of a person to prove a claim. While often authority can provide strength to an argument, problems can occur when the person's opinion is not shared by other experts or when the authority is irrelevant to the claim. So, for example, an athlete claiming that, a drug is useful. Maybe he doesn't have he is an authority in his sport, but maybe he's not an authority in the field of medicine, so that wouldn't work. Our example, a diet high in bacon can be healthy. Dr. Atkins says so. So a lot of doctors would disagree. They would say, no, bacon is not healthy, so you shouldn't eat a lot of it. So that appeal to authority, the problem is that a lot of other experts do not agree with that. An appeal to consequence concludes that a premise is true or false based on whether the consequences are desirable or not. An example will be humans will travel faster than light. Faster than light travel would be beneficial for space travel. So they're saying because faster than light travel would be beneficial, it's going to happen. So you can't just base something on the consequences if you want them to happen or not. A false dilemma argument falsely frames an argument as an either or choice without allowing for additional options. So this is kind of like the black and white. There's no gray area. An example would be either those lights in the sky were an airplane or aliens. There are no airplanes scheduled for tonight, so it must be aliens. So this isn't allowing for any other option other than these two. Circular reasoning relies on the conclusion being true for the premise to be true. So it's kind of backwards here. Example, I shouldn't have gotten a C in that class. I'm an A student. So because traditionally they're an A student, they rely on that to say that they didn't deserve a C in a particular class. That's circular reasoning. A post hoc argument claims that because two things happen sequentially, like one after the other, then the first must have caused the second. This is a common argument that's made. So an example would be, today I wore a red shirt and my football team won. I need to wear a red shirt every time they play to make sure they keep winning. So some of these superstitions happen a lot in baseball, I think. My son plays baseball, and I've heard people say they have lucky socks. The next argument is a straw man. So a straw man argument involves misrepresenting the argument in a less favorable way to make it easier to attack. So the example is, Senator Jones has proposed reducing military funding by 10%. Apparently, he wants to leave us defenseless against attacks by terrorists. So the first part is a statement, and then they say something less favorable in order to make the original statement easier to attack. Correlation implies causation. This assumes that just because two things are related, that one must have caused the other. But there could be some other cause for each thing. An example is months with high ice cream sales also have a high rate of death by drowning. Therefore, ice cream must be causing people to drown. So the conclusion here is completely illogical, but think about it. Months with high ice cream sales, that's probably the hot months. So let's say the summer. Well, the summer is also when more people swim. So the fact that it's summer may be related to both of these things, but ice cream sales is not directly related to drownings. So let's look at some examples and see if we can pick out which type of fallacy is occurring. So number one, only an untrustworthy person would run for office. The fact that politicians are untrustworthy is proof of this. So this is going to be circular logic. So they're using the first statement for the second and the second statement for the first. So this is circular logic. Number two, since the 1950s, both the atmospheric carbon dioxide level and obesity levels have increased sharply. Hence, atmospheric carbon dioxide causes obesity. So this is similar to the very last one that we saw. Correlation implies causation. So just because the two things are happening at the same time doesn't mean that they caused each other. So this is correlation does not imply causation. Number three, the oven was working fine until you started using it, so you must have broken it. This is a post hoc. So let's go back and look at a post hoc. Oh, I skipped it somewhere. Oh, there we go. Post hoc argument claims that because two things happen sequentially, then the first must have caused the second. So since you were using the oven, you started using the oven and then it broke, you must have been the one that broke it. So this is post hoc. Number four, you can't give me a D in the class because I can't afford to retake it. So this is the appeal to consequence. So because the consequence is unfavorable, meaning the student can't afford to retake the class, they're then saying they can't get a D in the class. So that's the appeal to consequence. Number five, the senator wants to increase support for food stamps. He wants to take the taxpayers' hard-earned money and give it away to lazy people. This isn't fair, so we shouldn't do it. So notice that the first is just a plain statement, and then after that, it's very negative. That one, you will see, is the straw man. Notice the straw man argument involves misrepresenting the argument in a less favorable way to make it easier to attack. So they make it seem terrible because of the way they phrase the next sentence. So that would be a straw man argument.